Hello everyone and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast, intra-race podcast between the Russian Grand Prix last weekend and the Eiffel Grand Prix next weekend. So we'll be chatting a bit. Obviously the big news is the Honda withdrawing from F1 at the end of next season. So we'll be talking about that and a few other kind of talking points that have come up over the season and over the last week that we have found interesting. So I'm here as usual with Freddie Coates. Freddie, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Adam. I'm doing very well.
And I'm not with Nigel. I'm very pleased to welcome to the podcast Ellie Jane F1 from YouTube / Twitter / wherever. Ellie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's better than the Nigel response, which is
He normally
he takes great offence at asking how he is at the start of the podcast when we've been on a Zoom call with him for 10 minutes already.
Thinks the audience hear
it. So, Ellie, do you want to plug yourself and your work a little bit?
So I am a writer for Drive Tribe, and I also have a YouTube channel. You can follow me up on Twitter because on there all my links are there. So I'm just at EllieJaneF1 over on Twitter, and you can find everything over there.
And on that note, we have a Winging It Twitter, which is at Winging It F1, and I've got my own Twitter, which is at Adam Dickinson01. And Freddie, what's your Twitter?
Mine's at Fred Coates 1999 for all of you fans of mine.
And Nigel is at
Nigel's not here.
We laughed it. Put that bit out. As I was having my week a bit, that Honda are going to pull out of F1 as an engine supplier at the end of the 2021 season. Obviously, they currently supply Red Bull and AlphaTauri, and so both of them will be looking for new engine manufacturers. They said that they wanted to focus more on carbon neutral engine technologies because their aim is to go carbon neutral by 2050, I think. So what were your first thoughts upon hearing this, Ellie?
I was like, instantly I was like, what? Like, is this actually real? Like, you just don't think something like this is going to happen. And then you're sat there like, who the hell are Red Bull now going to get in? Because everybody hates them. It was just their own fault, but then other people's faults. Like, and you're sat there like, I saw the notification on my phone, like from Sky, and I was just there like, what? And I could see that all my chats it's really happening. I was just a bit like, why? And I hadn't read everything at first, but that was my first reaction. How is this happening? Why? And obviously now we're seeing what you just said about they're probably aiming for the carbon neutral thing and things like that. And I think Formula E could be very interesting now they're leaving F1. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a bit of a shock because it's now, does a new engine supplier come into F1 or who do Red Bull go to? So there's a lot of questions surrounding it, I think.
Yeah. Freddie,
I mean, they haven't ruled out other motorsport endeavors. They said in their statement that how racing is part of their DNA, motorsport is part of their DNA, and obviously they've got a top flight IndyCar program that they win as well. So that's all still going ahead, and new ventures will probably go ahead. As Ellie said, Formula E is already pricking up its ears at a potential 9th manufacturer. I think this would be for them. And I think it's really interesting to see how Honda have come to this decision, because it's not, I mean, they've been very clear about the carbon neutrality, as you say, and not about the power unit regulations or anything, but we still only have 3 now from 2022 until 2026 when the new regs come in. We only have 3 power unit manufacturers with Ferrari, Mercedes and Renault, and they're the stalwarts. I mean, Mercedes and Ferrari, the only ones who've been there sort of consistently since the mid-90s for Mercedes. Renault left and came back and have been all over the place. So we haven't really got any stability in Formula One power unit manufacturers.
And kind of looking at manufacturers that might be kind of coming into F1 with a bigger, perhaps a team or kind of increasing their stake in F1. Honda were kind of the big one that seemed the most likely out of anyone to come in. Obviously, Yuki Tsunoda's a Honda protege in F2, and we'll come to him in a little bit. But for this kind of state of F1, it's quite bleak picture, I think. Do you think they need to simplify the power unit rules?
I think, I'm not like the most knowledgeable on the power unit things, but I thought, with 2022 coming in with that rule change, I thought, okay, we've got simpler things, it's cheaper. So I never expected Honda to go, yeah, well, we're leaving, especially when these engines are going to cost less money than they are right now. And to hear that, you think Ross Brawn has always said, we're going to bring racing close together and we're going to have, it's going to be cheaper. And then suddenly a team are like, no, we're not doing that. And it's like, because as you said, they've not really explained why they're not doing it other than the whole carbon neutral thing. It's like, is it actually a lot more money than we all know, really? And it brings in, as you said, like we all thought they were increasing their stake, maybe coming back into F1 properly, and now they've just gone and done a U-turn, basically.
Yeah, they're probably not really happy with the direction Formula One is going power unit wise, because the whole sort of liberty modus operandi is it's entertainment now. We're not going to be, we've got this is the final regulation set that's going to be attempting to link to road relevance. And it really doesn't. I mean, these are the most complicated engines ever. And the road relevance is only partially there. I mean, it's starting to trickle down a little bit, but not on the MGUH, MGUK level that you've got in a Formula One power unit. So, I mean, Honda's struggles have been so well documented as well. Only really for 2.5 seasons have they actually really done well in Formula One. And they've been there since, 5 years now? If it's in this segment. And I think for Honda, they're probably just not happy with the way it's going Formula One. I mean, Red Bull maybe is leaving a lot to be desired every year as well. They say, yeah, we're going to win next year. Oh, we're going to win next year. And it just seems to be a brick wall for Honda as well. If you really, really think about it, I'm not surprised at all that they've taken this decision. It seems like a very logical decision to leave Formula One.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, being involved in F1 is quite illogical for all parties. I think F1 does really need to think about the direction that it's going, because it's the biggest motorsport championship in the world. Obviously, it's got tracks lining up and countries lining up to host Grand Prix. It's the pinnacle for 99% of drivers starting their racing career. But the teams and engine suppliers, there's not kind of that interest there that there is kind of in all the other sectors. Red Bull, as we mentioned, are stuck in a pretty sticky predicament. Where do they go from here? They've either got to find another engine supplier from outside of F1, or they've got to go cap in hand to Renault, Ferrari, or Mercedes, none of which I think will excite Christian Horner too much. Where do you think they go from here?
I don't think they'll get a Mercedes engine. I will say that straight and bluntly. They are never going to get a Mercedes engine. Toto Wolff will never, ever, no one who runs Mercedes will agree to give Red Bull a Mercedes engine, because the engine is too strong from Mercedes. And then if Red Bull get their aero right, it's a winning package, realistically. I mean, I wouldn't think it'd be the winning package this year, because Adrian Newey I don't think they've got it right this year. But in other years, you could easily say if they had a Mercedes engine, they would have won. And so I think it's easy to say that they will not. I mean, who really wants a Ferrari engine right now, based on what's going on? So I think that would be a risk. I mean, I know everybody's risking everything going into 2022, which is when they'll need the new engine supplier. But they don't look good, and we're kind of just holding out hope. Going back to Renault will be just great Drive to Survive content. I just want to watch Christian Horner beg Cyril Abiteboul to let him have engines again. And it's quite funny, because their relationship is a complete mess. It was a very messy divorce, and now they're like, they might have to go back to them. But I mean, maybe they bring someone in. People are like, oh, they should bring like BMW in. I think it's going to be a real push to bring someone else in. It would be great to see, but I think it's going to be very hard to attract somebody to F1.
the only way they can feasibly attract a new manufacturer, it really depends on Honda. And because Honda will obviously have intellectual property of an engine up until the end of 2021. And perhaps someone like BMW or someone like Volkswagen perhaps could go and say, yes, well, I mean, not Volkswagen, they hate anything to do with combustion now, obviously. But I don't know, a massive manufacturer can go and perhaps buy the intellectual property and the designs and the design process from Honda, and then would have an up to spec engine. Because the issue with Honda was that they underestimated everyone else when they came in a year late in 2015 with the new regulations. So I think the only way you could bring in another manufacturer is if Honda play ball and allow them to do well based on Honda's work, essentially, which as a PR perspective is a bit of a nightmare. And obviously Honda is such a proud company that I don't really see that happening. I can only sort of thing I can see happening is Renault, and Renault will have one engine supplier, and that's themselves, with McLaren going to Mercedes. So, and there's a regulation in place that the manufacturer with the least suppliers then has to supply if a team cannot get a contract. So even if Cyril Abiteboul gets on his high horse and says, haha, no, we won't give you any engines, he still will have to, and then it will look worse for him. So it just seems to be, it's going to be an interesting PR nightmare for everyone in the next few months, next year perhaps. I mean, I would rather see Honda, give their intellectual property to another manufacturer, just because I think that's cooler, but that's probably unlikely.
Yeah, that would be very good, and maybe they can kind of cut a deal there that would favour them in some way, either financially or otherwise. And I also agree about the Drive to Survive content. That would be absolutely brilliant to see those two going at it again. A word on Tsunoda, who kind of looked to be not nailed on, but he looked to be kind of in prime position to get a AlphaTauri seat, or kind of be the next junior to step up to F1. Obviously a Honda protege, and who knows, maybe he would be involved in some deal like Freddie mentioned. But who do we think he's been kind of really damaged by this? Is he still our favourite to get into be the next Red Bull junior into F1, do you think?
I'm going to go with a no now, because obviously he's technically a Honda junior more than a Red Bull junior. And with Jury Vips, who they were pushing to try and get super license points for, they tried to send him over to Japan to do Super Formula, but quarantine rules mean he can't compete. And now it's like they've got, if they there's this whole thing about them maybe scrapping points for this year just because of COVID, and maybe they pick Jury Vips over him. I don't know if either of them are very ready for F1. That's a whole other debate in itself. But I think now it's put Jury Vips in a better place, and put Tsunoda in a bit of a worse place, because he's linked to Honda more than he is to Red Bull.
I think recently I've been more and more convinced that Albon is going back to AlphaTauri, and that you're going to have someone like Perez or Hülkenberg alongside Verstappen. So I think
Nigel on the pod again.
Yeah, this is basically the Albon basher. I would have said, even without this Honda news, that I thought Tsunoda would have been probably a year later anyway, depending on what happens at Red Bull in 2021. I think they're going to ditch Kvyat again, and then they're going to get an outside prospect such as Perez, which is the prime example to put in that seat, I think. And I feel like that's more likely an option for Red Bull anyway, even because I know Tsunoda's done really well in Formula 2. I mean, he's not been rocket, because he's not had a Leclerc year or a Russell year, and none of them have this year, which I don't know, depending on how you view it, but I think it doesn't guarantee an automatic promotion really. Then I think if he has another year, he would be a really brilliant prospect. But I think this year Red Bull will go external.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, all of the things around that. And obviously Tsunoda would need to get a super license to be in the conversation, and we don't know how that's going to go. Just one last thing on this. How would you rate Honda's foray into F1? If we say out of 10, where 10 is kind of Mercedes just coming in and absolutely dominating, and 0 is absolutely rubbish. I mean, they've, as you said, Freddie, they've not had too many good seasons. The McLaren years were awful, and they have kind of come on a bit. In the last few years, they have won races. I think 5 races and 15 podiums off the top of my head. And so, yeah, how out of 10, how would we kind of rate their entry?
Is a 5 nice? I feel like that's like because the amount of years they were bad with McLaren, yeah, okay, they weren't great, and then they obviously switched to Red Bull, and they've had 2 good seasons now? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Not good seasons, okay seasons.
1.5.
They're not winning. They're not winning a championship, and they've only won 1 race this year. Oh no, 2. Pierre Gasly has a Honda engine, of course. They've won, 2 races, and I think they'll obviously have a very similar next year. But overall, when you consider since 2015 they've come in, it'll be like half and half, really, half bad, half good. So I think a 5 will be right down the middle to say they've had some bad times, but they've also had some okay times.
I think I'd go pretty similar, maybe a 4 or 5. Yeah, kind of middling. I'll go with 4. Freddie?
Yeah, I was going to go around 4. Maybe I did consider lower, just because I know that when they thought, they sort of think 2015 is dire. That was appalling, obviously. 2016 they made a step up, which was expected, but it was still naff. But then 2017 they absolutely floundered once more and were just awful in 2017. And I just think because of that year being absolutely atrocious, I'm going to go 3.5.
Oh, well,
which is probably a good reason that they're leaving, to be honest. They're saving face.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be kind of, if they stayed another 3-4 years, how much would that rank rise? But we'll never know, because they're not. Moving on from Red Bull to another team, I was going to say at the top, but they're not, are they? Ferrari. Another team with a junior program. Let's go with that as our link. And the most intriguing junior program at the moment, obviously Red Bull's been kind of at the top for a long time, but Ferrari have kind of got the strongest crop coming through at the moment. And it was announced that Mick Schumacher and Callum Ilott will take FP1 at the Nürburgring, which is coming up next weekend, and Robert Schwartzman will get the chance at Abu Dhabi as well. To me, it kind of feels a bit late with Schwartzman in Abu Dhabi. Like, they could well have made their decision then already. So I don't know whether that counts him out at all. Obviously, Mick's kind of had experience already of driving some Ferraris, but not obviously his father's cars more than the current spec. And there was also an FD8 Fiorano test as well. Freddie, where do you think things stand with the Ferrari Driver Academy looking to next year?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, obviously Ilott and Schumacher, obviously, the top 2 in the F2 Championship, which is why they're getting a Nürburgring outing with Haas for Ilott and Alfa Romeo for Schumacher. And I think it's really going to be interesting to see what plays out, because this is just, I think they've both done fantastically. They both surpassed my expectations for this year in F2. If you had said to me that Schumacher was going to be leading the championship and Ilott would be in a fight for second with him, I would not have thought that. I thought, to be honest, actually, I thought Lundgaard and Schwartzman were going to walk this year. And I've been slightly interested to see that they haven't. So I've been really impressed with these guys. I think it's a conundrum for Ferrari. And I think they're going to probably go with what's happening in FP1. I think they'll go with Ilott at Haas and Schumacher at Alfa Romeo. Because that seems to be where all the rumors are heading to. So I think that's probably the right idea. And both teams are, not doing well at the moment. So they're both pretty much around each other, and they'll be able to be measured in an equal way, but also to have their own team to have their own kind of team behind them, so they can have that kind of confidence. And I think, particularly for both of them, they've had to open up another seat with Haas to get one of them into Formula One, perhaps. So I think they've both got such backing from Ferrari and they've both done really well. But I don't know, it could go completely differently. It all depends on Kimi Räikkönen, or depends on Grosjean, Magnussen, because, I mean, Haas have said, oh yeah, we're talking to pretty much everyone in the world. I mean, who knows what's going to happen there? I reckon someone's going to get left by the wayside, but I don't know who it is. I don't want it to happen.
I have to.
Yeah.
I think I agree, because I think I thought Mick would have to do a third year in F1, and everyone knows I'm a Mick fan, and I was convinced he would do a third year in F2, but then he completely just did what he did in F3, and is doing it again, and he's doing a really good job. Same for Callum. I always said I'd written Callum completely out of F1 for a very long, because when I was watching him, I was just like, okay, you're probably not going to go to F1, but you're good until this year. And I'm like, okay, he probably should get an F1 seat. I think, as I've always said, no harm could come out of the second year in F2 for Schwartzman, because it always, it's a competitive series. He'll know the tyres, he knows the cars at that point. There is no harm done in him racing for a second year in that series. And I think he could easily be fantastic next year, because he's got a couple of things he needs to work on. I think his qualifying, he really needs to work on. But I think because of how Ferrari have done this, I think that really kind of tells, like you said, where we'll see the drivers go. I think that's quite telling that we see Schwartzman come in so late.
Yeah, and Ellie recently did an FDA video on her YouTube channel. So check that out. It was very good. I think Mick is nailed on for a seat now. He's leading the championship. It always, previously it felt like he was the one that Ferrari wanted to get in the seat, but they couldn't if he wasn't up there in the championship, because it'd just be farcical, or would they do it anyway? But now he is. It just seems like there's no excuse for them not to, kind of, to themselves. Qualifying seems to be the big work on for him.
That's the best position for Mick to be in. He's put it in. He's forced the hand for Ferrari that they have to. That it makes him the obvious decision, and completely negates all of the name and all of that follows him, of the pressure that follows him his entire career. That's all negated by the fact that he's had the last few. Sochi was his absolute best race in Formula 2, and he's just getting better and better, and he's peaked at the exact right time. So good on him. He's
doing what he did in F3 again. He's that thing where he went on that just trend, and got accused of cheating at one point because he won and he did very well.
Because he was racing Tictum.
Yeah, that's where he got and he's doing that same kind of trend, and that's always what it's been throughout his career. Second season, he comes right at the right point. So I think I've seen that he was guaranteed a seat if he finished third. But obviously I can't see him finishing outside the top two unless it all goes terribly wrong now. I think he will finish within the top two very easily now. I don't know who's going to win it still.
Yeah, the gap to something like third place in 40 points now, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's quite big.
I think also, crucially, he's got there in the big break between Sochi and Bahrain. So there's like a 2-month break or something massive between that. So I think for a lot of teams will be looking, there's not any chance for drivers to change their position. And 2 months is years in the driver market. Yeah. It's absolutely ages. We've seen just in a few weeks how it can kind of change around. So to kind of be locked in that position for 2 months, I think is a massive thing of him. Freddie, you mentioned Kimi. Is he going to stay? If one of them does go to Alfa Romeo, who do you think would make way out of that team?
Giovinazzi would make way, wouldn't he? He should have been. I mean, we've seen Raikkonen against Vettel, and Giovinazzi should have been at that pace against Raikkonen. And the fact that Raikkonen is basically going so well, particularly now, actually, he's really stepped up his game for some reason. I thought he was not going to step up his game at all, but he seems to have been the consistent Group C, whatever it is, winner now. Giovinazzi did have a good race in Sochi, but it's just, I don't know, it's so average, unfortunately, from both of them, that I think you'd rather keep Kimi Räikkönen than Giovinazzi. Just Kimi Räikkönen's such a technical driver when it comes to feedback as well. I mean, people, he's got the perception of him being Kimi Räikkönen, but he knows what he's talking about, and he's really good on the tyres, and he could do wonders to help a young driver coming in. This has been spoken about quite a lot. Kimi Räikkönen as a mentor to Mick Schumacher. When he got pole in Monza, Mick Schumacher presented him the little tyre thing that they do for some reason, and he was really nice to him and everything. It's all PR, but I don't know. I can see that working really nicely as a pairing.
Yeah, I think Kimi and Mick Schumacher, after obviously battle with Michael in the first part of his career, that'll be, I mean, very nice circularity to it. Ellie, what do you think on Alfa Romeo? Who stays, who goes?
I think it's got to be Giovinazzi. I agree. I think he's just not been good enough. Like, to say he competed very closely with Pierre Gasly in F2, it's sort of underwhelming how this guy has done, and compared to Gasly as well, because like Pierre's he's won a race. I think he's become somewhat of a bit of a favourite because of his story, but he's proving himself as a really good driver. And Giovinazzi's just been underwhelming and maybe below average. Like, he just doesn't do anything, Whereas Kimi at times, especially in the Mugello, the race that Kimi had, to say he had a penalty was a very, very good race, and I was very impressed by him. And I think I was convinced he was going to retire, but I was convinced he was going to retire 2 years ago. I just don't think this man's ever going to retire. So I think he's going to stick it out for another year in F1. I did have hope for basically I wanted Seb not to go to I didn't want him to go to Aston Martin. I wanted him to go to Alfa Romeo and partner Mick. That didn't happen. So I think it will be Kimi there. I think that'll be a good mentorship as well, as you both said. Yeah, I agree.
I thought Kimi was going to retire in 2015, and I thought in 2016 the same, and the same in 17, and so on. So I think if I keep thinking he's going to retire, he'll just he'll buck the trend and stay till I'm older than him. Or I don't know. That doesn't work. I don't know. He'll be here for donkeys.
Well, F1's kind of got the tradition of people staying in. Bernie Eccleston kind of came in the 70s and then stayed in for.
Kimi's going to be 96 when he's bought out.
So maybe Kimi will do the same. We asked this question between the three of us, and I can't remember what we said true to form on the podcast. But Ellie, if you were a Ferrari junior driver in F2, either Callum Isler or Mick, where would you rather go to, Alfa or Haas next season?
Ooh. I think both, they're pretty much on the same par, and I think in a way, just because there's that. I know Haas have signed the Concord agreement, but there still can be fear around them leaving. So I think I would rather be at Alfa Romeo than Haas. And again, with Haas, you still don't know who's going to be partnering anybody at Haas either. That could be, depending on who's your partner, could be a very tricky relationship there. So I think I would say Alfa Romeo I'd rather go to.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at, as you say, with the Haas driver situation. Perez is another one kind of linked there. If we just have a look ahead to the next few races, we've got 4 circuits that weren't slated for the original calendar in a row, and then we've got Bahrain on the normal track, then we've got the Sakhir Grand Prix on the really short DRSE track, and then we've got Abu Dhabi. I was trying to avoid describing it as the oval track and kind of didn't really think what I'd use instead. Ellie, which of those are you kind of most looking forward to of the new inverted commas circuit?
I'm definitely looking forward to the Nürburgring, but Imola as well. I think Imola is going to be a very, very interesting race. And this year, I'm not putting any pressure on it, but Italy, every place I've been in Italy this year is delivered. So I've kind of got hope for Imola this year. But I think the Nürburgring will be really great to go back to. That'll be quite interesting to see what happens there. I think, but Imola definitely stands out. Because I haven't properly seen a race there, live. So so it would be very fun to get to watch that and watch these new cars on that track. It's been, when was the last time we were there? Like the 2000s, and I think only
2006,
I think only Kimmy's raced on the track, so I think that'll be so,
Yeah.
especially because there's no free practice as well. Thank God there's no free practice. So I think we could be in for a really, really good race. So I'm excited for Imola, definitely. I think.
Yeah, I think some junior series raced there. I think Pierre Gasly, off the top of my head, might have. There's some kind of Italian or Alps ones haven't. Freddie, which is the one you're looking forward to most, and why is it Imola?
Yeah, it's obviously Imola, isn't it? I've been flying the flag for that forever. I just love the track so much. I love it. And I mean, I don't know. I'm just gonna get excited watching it. Just seeing cars at Imola. It's one of those. I don't know, every sort of first race of the season, I get all giddy, like, wow, we're actually doing this. This is actually happening. Formula One's actually a thing. I've been dreaming about this for like normally 3 months since Abu Dhabi, and I'm already anticipating that kind of butterflies feeling of a Formula One race at Imola. But I will fly the flag for Portugal, Portimao, Algarve, whatever you want to call it, because I think that's going to be really interesting. Brand new track to Formula One. They did a test there once, and that's it. So that's also one that I think will be really interesting, particularly from a racing perspective, and also just because Portugal's a nice place.
Yeah, I was gonna throw Portimao in there. I think when we discussed it a while back, I thought Portimao was the most likely of all the circuits to get a permanent place on the calendar. But yeah, I think the first sector, I think they're not using the chicane, they're using the like fast long right hander. But having seen Mugello, where it wasn't kind of your traditional heavy braking zone hairpin at the first corner, it was kind of a longer. I thought it wasn't kind of the same angle, but it was a bit like Stowe, that there were lots of different lines that people took through it to overtake. And yeah, kind of having seen that, I'm hoping that Portimao can offer something similar in terms of that, and it should be, another brilliant blast through, a track that is very good to watch.
I checked the 14-day forecast for Nürburgring, and the only time when it wasn't raining was 1 o'clock on the Sunday of the race. And I thought, well, that's just going to prove it, isn't it? There's going to be like black ice on the track, but there won't be any rain.
I mean, that would be quite fun, having like study time going down. Might be quite lethal in a crash. But Antonio Felix da Costa is being reported as having a FP1 session at Portimao. I don't know. It was reported a few weeks ago, and I don't know kind of where it stands now. But Freddie, obviously, you know him probably best from Formula E. What do you think he'll bring to that?
Well, if it goes ahead, we saw there's a report on the race, and we know people who've heard a few sources about it. But if it does happen, I think he will do admirably. He was pushed aside only because of Verstappen and Sainz being excellent drivers, and we've seen that they're both still in Formula One. So Antonio Felix da Costa, if he was a year later, 2 years later, would have been in the Pierre Gasly slot now probably, and would have done really well in Formula One, I think. So I think wherever he ends up, I think he'll do fantastically. If it happens, he could be one of the people speaking to Haas. We don't know.
There's a lot of things swirling around Haas at the moment. Obviously, Perez, Hülkenberg were both in around the conversation. Well, Hülkenberg was around it last year and didn't sign there, but that could be an interesting one. Do you think Haas will retain one of their drivers? Do you think they'll retain both, or kind of where do you think they'll go with it, Ellie?
It's tricky. It's probably one of the trickiest questions, because there's a case of Magnussen's not as bad as people think he is. He's actually quite a good driver, in my opinion, and I think he's somewhat underrated. People kind of just think, I think people just think both Haas drivers just crash like all the time, and they don't. And I think it'd be very interesting, because I think it's time for Roman to go. I hate to say it. I think he needs to step aside. I think it is time for him to leave Formula One. I don't know, he could do Formula E. I'm sure he'd have a good time over there. Yeah. I think he'd be great over there. But I think if they keep anyone, I think it'd be Magnussen. But I think there's a very big chance they won't keep either.
Yeah, I think David Coulthard's the best one for that. Whenever there's a crash that just has a Haas like near it, then he'll make a little dig at them, kind of whether or not he looks at the, whether footage has actually come up or not. He'll, they go to wheel to wheel with the Haas driver around there or something like that. But yeah, I agree. Grosjean's kind of, I think his time is up, but it's kind of behind that. Obviously, if Ilott gets one of the seats, and then you've got Perez, or who's probably on paper is probably the best driver and obviously brings the investment as well. You've got Magnussen, who's been there for a while and knows the team and is a very solid driver. He's not done so well this season, actually. He's dropped off a bit over the mid-season, or kind of middle of the season so far. And then Hülkenberg's kind of the wild card, which is there or thereabouts. I don't think he'd get the seat, to be honest, but he's kind of in there. Freddie, what are your thoughts on it?
I might fly the Grosjean flag for about 30 seconds, and that he's actually put in some really solid performances for a below par car this year. Obviously, the only one he's been outclassed on, I think, properly by Magnussen would be Hungary, which is when it mattered, unfortunately, for him, but for points. So I think that's a little bit of a kick in the teeth. But I think Grosjean recently has actually performed really, really quite well. I think everyone's just a bit bored of Grosjean. I'm kind of the same. His Mugello radio kind of grated on me a little bit, that kind of thing. But obviously, you can understand it. I do think Hülkenberg would be the best option, actually, for Haas. I think Hülkenberg and Ilott would be an incredibly good lineup, though.
I think Grosjean did really light up the Sochi kind of practice sessions. He just it was brilliant. He came on the radio and was just like, I can't do anything with this guy. It's awful. The balance is all over the place. It's like Niki Lauda and Rush, but like at times a million. It was brilliant. And then kind of, I think at the end of FP2, then he like put in a decent time, and the engineer was like, well done, Roman, you've done really well. Like, just make him happy.
Yeah, you just feel bad for his engineer, don't you? Just like, the poor guy's got to be Roman Grosjean's life coach as well, and
he must moan a lot more than we hear as well. I reckon. I think we only hear like the real big like problem bits. So I imagine the engineer just is like, no.
He's like, in cycling, sometimes you see riders just rip out their earpiece when they're just sick of the team kind of giving them instructions. I feel like Grosjean's engineer could be the opposite. The same, but he might get some decent cooking, some nice waffles or whatever. I guess it might even out for that. I don't know. I'd happily be Roman's engineer if the position's available. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps everything up, unless kind of in terms of talking points, unless either of you have anything you want to add, preferably F1 related. But
then no.
Okay. Oh, were you about to?
No.
Okay, so we will go on to the quiz. It's Ellie's debut at the quiz.
Wow.
Throwing her in the deep end, and it's a bit of a kind of random one. General points of the season so far. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think currently, are we all 3-all?
I think we're 3-all. So Ellie's got to win 3 quizzes today.
Okay. Well, good luck for that. Okay. Well, we will. The first question is.
Oh, one sec. Do you know how to do it, Ellie?
No. Yeah. How do you guys do it?
I listen. You could have just carried on and.
Yeah, and I could have sat here like.
Yeah. You shout your name, okay. So you just go Ellie if you know the answer.
Right, I'll shout my name. My name.
Yeah. And it's kind of one. If Freddie shouts his name and gets it wrong, it then kind of goes.
Okay.
And it's basically who Adam hears first because he's leading it.
Yeah.
Right.
So sometimes that goes a bit interesting. or kind of like,
Okay.
oh, I've got it, and then no. But okay, but yeah. So we're at round 10 now, or we just completed it. After round 10 last year, was the gap between first and second in the championship bigger or smaller?
Ellie, I think it was bigger.
Yes, it was by
Ooh.
2 points. It
Where
41
was round 10? Where was round 10 last year? Was it Hockenheim?
Silverstone,
Oh, Silverstone.
Silverstone.
I hope.
Normal round 10, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah, so midpoint-ish. But yeah, 2 points in it. It was 39 last year and 41 this year. So that's 1-0 to Ellie. This might be the closest wins depending on how well it goes, but we'll try and get the actual answer. How many nationalities have won a race in F2 this year, feature or sprint?
Yeah. Freddie.
Yes, Freddie.
8.
Yes, that is correct. You saved me having to ad-lib a lot. Well, you decided about figuring it out. Yeah, I didn't note it down. It's German, British, Brazilian, Japanese, Chinese, Danish, Russian. Insert final one here. I can't remember. But yeah, and it was, I think the race brought it up on a podcast a while back, but it's kind of across junior series, there's a massive range of countries involved now. It's not just kind of classic motor racing countries. So that is very fun. Question 3, so it's 1-1. After the British Grand Prix, which drivers said they thought they'd have got a podium if the race went on for a few more laps?
Freddie.
Yes.
Ricardo.
Yes, that is correct.
I've known that one. Honestly, that one just, I can't remember that.
Well, he
that
finished
race.
4th, and Hamilton had a puncture, so it's kind of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I was initially planning to do a kind of mini round of like 3 to 5 questions on who said this after the Grand Prix, but I couldn't really find enough juicy quotes that would be ambiguous. So I just put that question and left it. So that is now 2-1 to Freddie. Only one driver is on the same score after 10 rounds this season as last season. Who is he?
Ellie.
Yes.
It's not who I thought it was. No, you've not got it. Not
Okay.
who I thought it was.
Opening the floor back up.
Freddie.
Mm.
Giovinazzi.
No. Could be on for another Freddie's Spanish Grand Prix question. That's not a hint, by the way. It's just.
Oh, the one where you ran through every single driver on the grid and then didn't know who it was, and it was.
Yeah. Yeah. The question was who got the fastest. Feel free to jump in as well. I'm just ad-libbing well. You think that Freddie said.
Trying to think. I'm really trying to think here who it is.
Who got the fastest lap of 2016 Grand Prix, Spanish Grand Prix, and we genuinely went through about 2/3 of the grid trying to think of it.
19 out of 20 drivers you did.
Yeah. But crucially, I got them 20th, so it was all good.
Oh God.
I'm gonna go for the one that I was gonna say.
Okay.
Perez.
No.
Ooh. Oh. It'd have been cool if it was.
Freddie at shot and then out.
Grosjean, 0.
No, but
Okay.
you're very close.
George Russell, 0.
George Russell.
Oh,
Yeah.
of course, yes.
We'll give
Oh man.
Ellie gets the point for that at the death. Snatches it. So it's 2-all.
Oh, that's too obvious.
You
You didn't even have to look it up, did you?
Like, yeah, my head was like.
Yeah.
And then you said Roman 0. I was like, oh, George had 0.
Yeah.
0 now.
Yeah, I did. I had to go through and check that none of us had it, but
I guess Latifi as well. He had no points at this point of the season last year in Formula 1 because he wasn't in it.
That's true. But yeah, just change the question to fit the answer. But yeah, 2-all going into question 5. Sergio Perez was the first driver to withdraw from a Grand Prix since who?
Freddie.
Yes.
Massa.
Yes, that is correct. Do you know the race?
Yes.
Just for some
I
kudos.
do.
Okay.
Hungary
3,
17.
2, 1. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Was that another question?
No, it was going to be
okay.
like, I go 3 to 1, then you both say it at the same time. It's like a funky.
Hungarian
not
Grand
nice
Prix
thing.
2017.
Yeah, but it didn't go well.
The rest.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, that was on the stat flying around when that happened. It's 3-2 to Freddie, still very tight as we go into the back 5 of the quiz. Which of the 5 new circuits to the calendar this year is the shortest, as in the ones that weren't originally on the calendar? And this wasn't what I thought it would be, actually, but yeah, I went on. I did a similar question on Mugello, and yeah, just fired at the list of Grand Prix circuits and went.
Honestly, don't know Grand Prix length tracks off my head, so I've got to think
You've
about
got
it.
1 in 5 chance, to be fair.
Yeah, 1 in 5.
That is.
Freddie, Turkey.
No, I think that's the longest.
Oh, there we
Ellie.
are then.
Yes.
Nürburgring.
Yeah. No. Sorry. Confusing. I think there's
Freddie, Bahrain Outer.
Yeah.
I was going to say that,
Surely.
but I didn't know if that counted. That's what my original
I
thought was.
wasn't actually counting. I wasn't counting it to
Oh, okay.
start with. But you can have it. You can. The floor's open again. It's not. I won't count that as a guess wrong.
Ellie.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
Imola.
No.
What are we down to now? Portimao and.
Oh yeah, Freddie, Portimao.
Yeah, there we go.
I just couldn't think about that. I forgot that one.
Yeah.
There's a really short. I think maybe not Mugello, but Istanbul and the Nürburgring are really close, and I think Mugello might be in that as well. I did have all of them noted down, but it's on my phone, which is what I'm recording this from, so I can't check it. But yeah, it's 4.8 maybe kilometers.
Wow.
That is 4-2 to Freddie as we go on to question 7. What was Danny Kvyat's British Grand Prix crash initially blamed on?
Ellie.
Yes.
A puncture.
No.
My head was saying it's a puncture.
It was after they kind of reviewed. After they reviewed the footage.
Yes, it actually was.
But initially, after the crash.
I said it was a puncture straight away. No, Freddie saying driver error.
Yeah, which was
it just
really
so obviously wasn't. Why did they do that?
See, this is like all of the pundits were saying, "Oh, it was a puncture."
You could see the tyre deflated.
Yeah, but then AlphaTauri released a press release with kind of Danny Kvyat taking the blame and them saying, "Oh yeah, it's tough for Danny, but everyone makes mistakes and he'll bounce back." It was quite a bizarre thing. And then the footage came out of the rear-facing camera that showed the rear left, I think, deflating.
The one camera angle they showed of the car spinning out, and then they showed the camera just filming him in. You could see the rear tire was not on the rim. Yeah, you could see. I
remember it being. That's why I didn't think they would, because it was a puncture.
Yeah, so. I was the same. I was thinking, wait, was it just proved as not a puncture?
Yeah, I was thinking it wasn't a puncture, but it looked like a puncture from what we saw.
Yeah.
I'll take the point.
It was a very bizarre thing, but yeah. And you have taken the point, and I think that's 5-2. Yeah, let's go with that. Freddie. How many drivers did Lando Norris overtake in the final 2 laps of the Styrian Grand Prix? It's kind of the consolidation of the last lap Lando in those last 2 laps, but
Freddie.
Yes.
4?
No.
Oh.
Ellie.
Yep.
5.
No. Floor's open.
Freddie 3.
Yes, that's correct. Have you named them?
Well, there was Stroll, Ricardo, Perez at pretty much the line. When did he
Is it
pass?
just them?
He took Ricardo. They kind of it was when Stroll ran Ricardo wide.
Yeah.
And that. And
Yeah.
also,
He
and then
did.
he slid kind of through there, and then he took Stroll. I think it's kind of the similar kind of back straight, on the final lap, and then took.
When did McLaren order him past Sainz?
I think a couple of laps before, because he had to make the gap up
Okay.
between them.
That's what I was thinking of.
It was a brilliant move from McLaren.
Yeah, because Sainz finished like 11th or something.
And I think he got fastest lap, I think.
Oh, there we are. So they pitted him.
Did he pit? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, fair play. They got it sorted. Question 9. Who was the last race winner to drive for Racing Point / Force India? So obviously, Sebastian Vettel was announced as being next year's Aston Martin driver, and he has won over 50 races, I think.
2, I think. 53.
Yeah, and they've had one previous race winner in the midst.
I know.
My time back the years and
Freddie, Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yes, Giancarlo Fisichella. He got it on pole at the 2009 Belgian
Grand Prix, and then he was signed by Ferrari for Monza, replacing Bedoya.
Yeah, and it didn't go very well. Well, he did better than Bedoya, but
didn't get a point, did he?
No, it's not really saying much. So yeah, the quiz has now slipped beyond Ellie's grasp with that. But there is one more question. Yeah, I mean, considering I don't know if you knew there was a quiz before coming on, and then didn't know how to do it until about 5 seconds before it started. It's maybe a bit harsh, but anyway, you're doing better than I did in the Hungarian preview. My Nigel just absolutely slaughtered me. But the final question is, what is the gap between 3rd and 5th in the Constructors' Championship? McLaren sitting 3rd.
It's really close. I know it's close.
It is very close. And Racing
Ellie.
Point. Yes, Ellie.
I think it's 5 points.
Oh.
No. Is that what Freddie was going to go for?
Yeah, it was. 6?
I think it's so close.
Is that your guess, Freddie?
Yeah, Freddie 6.
No.
Damn.
Ellie.
Yes.
3.
No. So it wouldn't be a thing if Racing Point hadn't been deducted their 15 points, but that's slotted them
that's true.
right in the pack. Ferrari are they're 25 points off Renault.
Leclerc's had a 1.
Really?
5th, yeah, they're in 6th. They're closer to AlphaTauri than they are to Renault, which is
Of course they are.
not.
Tragic.
Freddie 8.
No.
Oh, I'm guessing numbers now.
Ellie. Ellie
Yes.
7.
Yes.
Hey.
Got there. Yeah, got there in the end.
What order is it in? Is it McLaren, Racing Point, Renault?
Yeah, McLaren, Racing Point, Renault. 106 for McLaren, 104 for Racing Point, 99 for Renault. But yeah, very tight, and that will be one to kind of watch all the way to the end of the season, really. I think that will be it's a nice battle. And they're often like good at different tracks. Like McLaren have had a few quite poor races. And
it's all seemed to be sort of falling onto second drivers, I think. Like Ricciardo is really carrying Renault. And Leclerc, points-wise, definitely is carrying Ferrari as well. And points-wise. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how other drivers impact this, because obviously Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz are both always sort of giving it their all, apart from when Sainz plows it into a wall in the start.
Yeah, very bad driver error.
Very embarrassing.
Or just can't be asked to start at Spa. Just thought, no.
Oh yeah, just why not? Let's just. Oh no, I've got a screen failure. Oh no.
Racing Point are the most communist team at the moment, with an equal division of Labour, because Lance Stroll has to keep jumping.
Every race Stroll's finished, he's been in the points.
Yeah, Lance has had I think it's 3 DNFs now. I had Sergio obviously missed 2 races, so I think it evens out a bit more.
Yeah.
Quite like Lance though.
I like Lance. I think everybody knows that.
I think I liked him after the Monza race, where he's just like, I'm just happy. He just seems happy. That's what we want.
I think they all did. I think they all seemed so happy after Monza. I think that was just really nice to see. Oh no, Carlos was like, I should have won.
That's kind of, I kind of get that.
I get it, but it's like, just be happy.
Just accept the podium. Like, just accept it.
Yeah,
because you're not gonna get on the podium with Ferrari at the rate they're going. So accept it.
You've only got one before, so just take it. But yeah, that draws us to the end of this episode. We'll be back again for the Eiffel Grand Prix preview, where there'll probably be more news come out, and we'll also look ahead a bit more to the race and who we think will go well there, and what we expect from it. Massive thanks to Ellie for joining in at quite short notice.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and hopefully get you back at some point in the future as well. And yeah, cheers again, Freddie, and thank you all for watching and listening, and goodbye.